Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Kageyama, and I'd like to welcome everyone here to Be Your Own Hero. I'm a stage 4 prostate, bone, and lung cancer patient. Been dealing with cancer since late 2020, early 2021. Doing very well, and I'm happy, happy, happy to be alive. Every day is a new adventure. Every day is an opportunity to live life. And that's what we should all do, whether we have cancer or not. Life is precious. Life is a gift. And I want to give a quick commercial here. Please like, subscribe, and make a comment in the comment section of the video. And we're going to get into a great conversation. Uh, we Linda's great. Linda is my returning guest, and this is a part three of our three-part interview series. And she came up with a great topic that we would love to discuss with you, and hopefully all of you will get something wonderful out of this discussion. So at this time, without further ado, I'd like to introduce my guest, Linda Trummer. Linda, please reintroduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are, and we're going to get into something really great.
Good. Thanks, Mark. Linda Trummer here from Minnesota. And I just want to point out that today it is 63 degrees
I'll
and the
take it.
leaves are
That's really
starting to
nice.
fall. Yeah, I love it.
Beautiful.
I love it,
Yeah, that's
actually. I was diagnosed 10 years ago with mantle cell lymphoma, blastoid variant, and had a very toxic chemo, so I had a pretty rough go of it. I made it for almost 8 years before relapsing. Mantle cell is a rare incurable lymphoma. So oftentimes we will relapse on the journey. But here I am doing okay. Glad to be here.
beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So, why don't you share with our audience what you were discussing in another group call today?
hmm Well, something periodically comes up, and that has to do with relationships. And it doesn't just come up in marriage relationships, but very often wives are the caregivers. For my cancer, mantle cell lymphoma has more men who are diagnosed than women. So many of their wives who are their caregivers have joined the support group that I run. Um, and it seems that uh, some of the women are really struggling with the changes of their partner, the way that their partners respond to them when they're having a bad day or when something comes up, um, the way that they react to their partner's frustration of being sick, having cancer, having their life changed. But it also has happened over the years that I've been working with cancer patients that siblings who are caregivers are dealing with the same issue. So, as Mark and I were talking, we realized that many of our relationships change once we're diagnosed with cancer, and so we thought that would be a really good topic to talk about today.
I 1,000% agree. Um, what's interesting, I remember many years ago, and this was the first time that I really had a real direct connection to cancer, was a uh, a friend of mine who also used to be a client of a previous business. He was a real big guy. I mean, he was, at his peak, he was probably 6'5", 350. I mean, just a mountain of a guy, but just a teddy bear. Really, really super nice guy. And he ended up getting, and this must have been 20 years ago now. He ended up getting brain stem cancer.
Mm,
And so, I really didn't have much connection to cancer at all prior to that, but I would go visit him regularly. And over I think over the course of about a year to a year and a half, I'd go visit, and he lived probably 45 minutes away. So it was no easy haul to get there, but I made it a point to go see him. And I watched him wither away right before my eyes. I mean, when he ended up passing after that period of time, he went from about 350 down to about maybe 140, 150.
Oh,
I
wow.
mean, he was just, I mean, it was just frightening. And his wife was tiny. She was really, really tiny, just beautiful, beautiful person. She was probably, I imagine, maybe 5'2" and couldn't have been more than 130 at the most. And at the end of that, she ended up having to carry him to the bathroom. I don't know how she did it. I really don't know how she did it. I mean, and I knew things were wearing on her. So he ended up passing, and I ended up, visiting her at the at his as a funeral at the reception, and she said something that I always remember to this day. And she said to me, "Thank you so much for coming and visiting all the time." And she said, "What's interesting is some of his close friends before he passed, they disappeared. And some people that I didn't even really know, like myself, all of a sudden showed up and were there and, made the effort." And she said that was just like the wildest thing I think I've ever seen, how the relationships with people, how they shifted, uh, as time went on, as he started getting weaker and started getting worse. So yeah, I love this topic, and why don't you give me your input as to what your thoughts are, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Uh, well, I see it in a couple of different ways because I have also seen couples grow even closer together after one of them has been diagnosed with cancer. Um, in the support group, uh, men aren't always good at expressing their emotions. And so I'm always quite touched when,
But
um,
but on the flip side, to be fair, the same can be said for women too. It
oh,
just
absolutely,
depends on the situation.
the situation, yes. Um, but there is something generational about it. And we have men who are 70, 80 years old in our group because it tends to affect men who are older in years, 65 plus. Um, so, what I see some men posting just is so endearing to me because they'll say that they don't know what they would do without their partner, their wives, who have stood beside them and taken care of everything during their illness. And I think for some people, relationships get even stronger because they realize that friends have faded away. Some family members have moved on to their own lives. And who is still standing with you? The person you married.
Mhm.
So if that relationship is rocky because of the stress, I will say it must be the stress of having cancer affect your life. Um, People deal with that in harsher ways, I think. They don't quite know how to respond to it um, on either side, the patient or the caregiver. So I've had several conversations with women in particular who are really struggling with their marriages because intimacy isn't what it used to be. Even hand holding is not something that they do anymore. Um, The women tend to feel like perhaps their husband doesn't love them anymore. Um, just all kinds of issues like that crop up. And I think it kind of affects their self confidence, the way they view themselves. And caregivers are already very stressed out. I I've always thought it was easier being a patient because I know what I have to do. I have to follow my doctor's directions unless I find a different way to do things. I have to stay healthy and I have to survive. But a caregiver, suddenly, especially if they are younger families, the caregiver suddenly has children to raise, um, income to be concerned about, losing their husband possibly at a younger age. There are just so many variables involved in relationships between a husband and wife or significant others, whatever type of relationship you have. I'm single, so I'm on the outside looking in, but when these women communicate with me, I can really hear the pain that they're feeling. Um, and sometimes I just want to say, well, why would you deal with that? Walk away, walk away. But that's not the right thing. So, yeah, that's one of the things that's come up recently is the roles, the emotions have changed a bit in some of the relationships, and women are struggling with how to deal with that. They want their old guy back.
Yeah, that's a great point because when cancer hits, you get a cancer diagnosis, it changes a person. It's life changing.
Yes.
I don't care what people say, unless it's a very minor stage and very few things need to be done. But if it's a significant cancer journey, a person's life can change dramatically,
Mhm.
radically, and in so many different ways. And so as the person is enduring this diagnosis of cancer, uh, all these different emotions are flying every which way, and how to control them and how to deal with them is, a significant part of the journey. And it's tough. And I think we are touching on what could be one of the most one of the toughest things to deal with in a
Hmm.
cancer journey. And you mentioned about it being easier for the patient. And I agree. I think it is easier for the patient as opposed to a spouse, friends, the caregiver, because essentially those people on the outside looking in are handcuffed
Hmm.
because they can only do so much. And I go back to when a cancer patient tells the people around them in their circle, I've been diagnosed with cancer. And it's, I mean, it happens. And I'm not saying it's good or bad either way, but people deal with that in different ways. People that know about cancer and have dealt with cancer deal with it in a different way than those that have not dealt with cancer. Because partially, we go back to the fact that there's fear involved. And I almost think that some people think that cancer can be transmitted like a cold because they feel like they don't want to be around that person because of that. And that's not the right thing to do. I mean, cancer patients when cancer patients get diagnosed with cancer, they need people and they need support more than they ever have in their life. Because it is such a dramatic change. And the more people that could support and offer love, compassion, empathy, and support for the cancer patient, it just makes a world of difference to that person. And I mean, it's just, I remember when I got diagnosed, I had people. step up that I would have never expected. I had a cousin, uh, and her name is Bonnie, and she's, I didn't even hardly talk to her, but she reached out and she, has kept in touch. And then I've had other friends that, were on more on the periphery, and some of my closer friends, they kind of drift away. But that's a natural thing about cancer that people have to accept. Your whole life is going to change and your whole life is going to evolve. And the whole key to it, I believe, is for the person and the people around them to evolve with their cancer. Because things are always changing. Things are always, there's always curveballs that come up, and there's always roadblocks, and there's always different situations that come up. What are your thoughts on that?
I totally agree with you. Um, and people will talk about how their life is changing and how they want their normal back. Um, and then somebody will always say, well, now you have to have a new normal. And I kind of roll my eyes to that, to be honest, because there is no one new normal. Your life is constantly evolving, and um, there are going to be many new normals along this journey. So don't expect for things to just fall back into a comfort zone. It's always going to be changing. And you just have to keep an open mind about it. And like you said, maybe a different interview. I see things in a completely different perspective than I did before. Life is so much more beautiful to me now than it was before. The relationships that I have um, are more meaningful. I think about things that I didn't really think about before because my priorities have changed. Um, so I agree. I agree with you. It does affect us. And some people are able to go back to some of the things they used to do, like their job or exercising or, running marathons, whatever, they did before, perhaps they can still do. Um, but at some level, your life has changed forever.
No doubt, no doubt. And I think people need to have the willingness and the open-mindedness moving forward. For instance, myself, I was a totally, totally different person prior to cancer. I mean, I was very active. I worked out 4 to 5 times a week, worked out hard. I was in great shape. I was a vegan for 10 years. I was into sports. I was avid sports fisherman. Um, I haven't gone back to a lot of that. I have gone back to working out on a much lighter basis. But that's
Mhm.
okay because that's my adaptation of what the situation is. I can't physically um, do what I used to do, and I accept that. I mean, when I uh, prior to cancer, I was lifting pretty heavy. I used to squat, 1.5 plates on each side, and I used to curl 20 to 25 pounds an arm. I can't do that anymore. And I accept that. And I think that's part of the willingness as a person, as you're evolving, is to accept who you are today. Because yesterday is gone. That person that you were before cancer is gone. And being able to accept the new you and the changed you is critical.
Mhm.
Absolutely critical because that is part of the evolvement in the journey. I'm good with who I am today. I'm perfectly fine. I'm happy to be alive every single day. I thank the Lord for, waking up in the morning. I went out this morning and I took a little walk. And it was such a beautiful day, like yours, only ours is a little warmer. But this morning it was pristine.
Mm.
the skies were really blue, no wind, and I just enjoyed it. And I could never do that before. I could never appreciate the things that I appreciate now because my perspective on life has changed. And I know that it's the same for you as well,
It
because
is.
you've already
Yes.
talked about it.
Hmm.
So I think accepting change and accepting the different world that we live in and the world that we are in is so important. And I think so many people look backwards and say, gosh, I can't do this anymore. Okay, that's great, but you did do it at one time
Hmm.
and it was a great thing, but now you do different things. And everything I do now is different than what I did before, but I have learned to accept it. I have learned to appreciate it, and I've learned to love them. And so I think learning to adapt and then learning to grow and accept growth and accepting different situations, I think is so important for life.
I totally agree with you. Yeah. When I was going through chemo, I lost weight. I've always been tiny. I will say, I will confess that I probably was underweight much of my life. I weighed about 90 pounds up until I was almost 60 years old. And that's just what I weighed. I ate everything. My metabolism was really fast. So after chemo, I gained weight. I didn't step on the scale, but I knew I gained weight because I had to get larger clothes. And that was probably one of the biggest challenges that I faced was not looking in the mirror and seeing this thin woman anymore, but seeing a larger woman. And finally, I got to the point where I was like, I'm fine. Who cares? It was just, I was, my friends still looked at me as the same person I was before. It didn't matter to them how much I weighed. Well, maybe one or two had an issue, but who cares? Um, and then last fall, I had my first TIA, a mini stroke. And then earlier this year, I had my second one. It was a warning to me that I needed to take a look at my physical wellness, my diet, I was so wrapped up in the emotional part of my journey that I wasn't thinking clearly about what I needed to do physically to take care of myself. Um, and so now I'm happy to say that as of today, I've lost about 25 pounds.
Wow, fantastic.
Yeah, yes. And I'm getting back in, I don't, I'm never going to be 90 pounds again. I don't want to. When I look back at those pictures, I'm like, no, I don't want to look like that anymore. But I do want to get within a healthy BMI so that all my records don't say that I'm obese. But but that's, again, one of the changes. It's really important to look at your whole self when you've been diagnosed with cancer, when you travel this journey. Look at your relationships, look at the interactions you're having with other people, look at what you're eating, your physical activity. There's a whole bunch of stuff. It's like the last time the video that you put up. What was it? Cancer is your new job, or something like
Mhm.
that. It is your new job. We'll still carry that theme forward. It is your new job. And now we're adding relationships, managing relationships to that. And I know I have a son who's 42 years old, and he has seen me go through hell and back. He saw me struggling through hospice. He saw me almost die from COVID. Um, he received a phone call from the ICU doctor one night while I was in the hospital on a ventilator with COVID, telling me they did not expect me to make it through the night.
Wow.
And he couldn't visit me because I was in ICU.
Mhm.
And this might make me teary, but they put they put the phone up to my ear, even though I was in an induced coma, so that he could say goodbye to me. And of course, I don't remember any of that because I wasn't there. I was not there. But he remembers it very clearly. He even wrote down the time the doctor called, what he said to me on the phone. When he hung up the phone, he called back because he wanted to ask them to please have somebody hold my hand because he knew that would be important to me. Well, I died. And and then I survived. So, he still struggles with that period of time,
I don't blame
having
him at all.
having to say goodbye to me. And I raised him as a single mother. So we were very close. It's always been the two of us. And then 2 years ago, when I got sepsis and was put on a ventilator again, he again thought he was going to be saying goodbye to me. And so there's a lot of emotional trauma that our loved ones go through too. And I don't know about you, Mark, but I was diagnosed with PTSD, panic attacks, anxiety disorder, and the onset of depression about a year into my cancer journey. And fortunately, I had a really good psychiatrist who was able to evaluate all of this so that I could get put on proper medication and get proper talk therapy so that I had a plan when I was feeling suicidal, because guess what? I was feeling suicidal. And um, and our loved ones are watching us go through that and feel rather helpless. And that's only one piece of what they're dealing with is our emotional wellness. And I think that oftentimes we forget that our caregivers, our loved ones, could be going through the same types of things: depression, anxiety, stress, panic attack. Um, and they need to be treated for them, just like we were treated for them. So, anyone who hears this and is feeling hopeless or helpless, um, really not knowing what's going to happen to their marriage, to their relationships, please get help. Whether it be talk therapy or if you need medication to get stabilized, so that you can deal with the other pieces of it. It's really important. It's not just about the patients getting medical help, it's also about our loved ones. I just really wanted to throw that in there because I think it's so important. And I think sometimes we overlook that part of the journey.
Great, great point. And that's the beauty of groups like we have.
Hmm.
It is the camaraderie and the openness and the connections that we develop with people. I mean, I know your group is a very close-knit group, even though it's very large.
Hmm.
You have people set up in the right places to help people, and that's what it's all about. There are avenues to help people, and so we encourage everyone who's seeing this to reach out and get the help that you need, because uh, you can't just bury it. You can't just bury things because they'll come back, in a different form somewhere down the road. And
Right.
so it's better to deal with things as they come. And that's great, great advice, is to either get help or get involved with people who can offer support.
Agreed.
So yeah, I mean that is absolutely fantastic. And what would you like to share with your group in particular, as a final message here?
I would have to say that it would be, don't keep all those feelings locked up inside. Um, you belong to a support group of people who probably are experiencing something similar. And if there's any place to talk about it, it would be amongst people who understand it. And and don't be shy about seeking help. Uh, in my group, I would say if it's something you don't feel like talking about to the whole group, private message me. I'm completely open to talking with people one on one about whatever situation they need to talk about, um, because that's the starting point. And your family doctor, your primary care physician is the one to reach out to and let him or her know that you're struggling with some of these emotional issues, that your relationship has become more challenging. Don't give up hope on that. Um, because it's, you know, most of the time it's temporary
Hmm.
and people work through these things, and it's going to get better. It's going to get better.
That is beautiful. Linda, thank you so much for a great conversation as always. And, we'll have to reconvene at a later time down the road. Uh, but I just want to thank you for your openness and your honesty and your willingness to share with everyone here, because this message that we just discussed here today is so important. And we encourage each and every person out there who is struggling mentally to seek help and get help, because things like this, they don't go away on their own.
No.
So we highly suggest, both of us highly suggest, that you reach out and reach out to Linda, reach out to myself, reach out to the group, or get professional help. One of those options, but do something about it, because there are options for everyone. Did you want to say something else?
I do. I wonder if I can end with one of my silly poems
Sure,
that
absolutely.
I published in my group, to make husbands and wives laugh.
Go for
Okay?
it.
All
I'd
right.
love to hear it.
The title is The Husband and His Wife. What the heck, she said one day as she looked into the mirror. She gasped again as she turned around and caught a glimpse of her rear. He too was standing by her side and saw what came to view. What happened to his youthful wife? The poor guy had no clue. His wife had seen it long ago, the hair growth from his ears. Her homemade pies had changed his shape. He'd been like that for years. They both burst into laughter like they read each other's mind, for they knew there was no other, but their love was too divine. To those who stand beside us on this journey we must take, we may not show it as we should, but without you, we would break.
Wow, that is fantastic. You have another profession lined up there. You are a fantastic poet. Thank you
Oh,
so
thank
much,
you.
Linda.
Yes. Thank you, Mark.
That was absolutely fantastic. And I would like to thank each and everyone out there watching and viewing. Uh, Thank you so much. Make the most out of your life. Make the most out of each and every day, because each and every day is a gift. We talked about the way we got up in the morning and we looked out around and saw how beautiful it is today. That's the view. Be positive. Feed yourself positive thoughts, because that's is a much happier way to live. So think happy thoughts. And we will see you next week on To Be Your Own Hero. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye bye.